we have the Five Percenters. This is a group that is found primarily in the United States of America, founded in New York area. It was founded in the New York area. And it came out of the Nation of Islam, which came out of a strange, twisted part of idea of Islam. It's starting in the 1960s, 1963, around that time. Came from many. It has many adherents. It doesn't have that many adherents. Pretty much a cult. Probably 1,000 people, a couple thousand people at most here in America, I would say. But it has influenced pop culture. It was a certain point. People were going around wearing emblems like that. Like on necklaces, like Jay-Z was wearing something like that not too long ago. But anyhow, it was founded by Clarence X. Thomas. Originally, his name was Clarence Edward Smith, and when he created this group, he called himself Father Allah, quote unquote. Can't say that's a Muslim, but that's what he called himself. And so he was originally from the Danville area. It's actually from an area where my grandparents are from, and my grandfather's hometown. And he he grew up in that time, and probably when my great grandparents were growing up. In that time in the South during Jim Crow, and so he really experienced that. So he went up north during the Great Migration to New York. And so here in New York, he made his way to Brooklyn, but he went to his wife. When he was living there for a couple of years, he had to go to a couple of deployments during the during the Cold War to Korea. But his wife, when he was away, joined the Nation of Islam, and he followed her to the Nation of Islam. He was in the Nation of Islam for a number of years, and he even reached the status of assistant imam at the masjid at Mosque 7 in the nation under the leadership of Malcolm X, and he became the assistant imam or assistant teacher. But at this time, when he was about to leave, that he had issues with Louis Farrakhan not being white, and how could he be God, because they consider him to be God in a nation like that. And he had gambling issues, and he didn't like the way they're treating him because he was gambling, and he sometimes say that he fell out, and so there was a lot of opposition. It was starting to crack. Obviously, Malcolm was being pushed out at that time too, so that was happening, and then so he leaves the nation, probably just because he got pushed out. He didn't like the ideas of Allah about being God, and he creates in the name of Allah, the 7 percenters. The 5 percenters, excuse me. I don't know why the 7 is that. You need to research on that. But he started the 5 percenters, and he was actually still kind of influenced by the NOI, and he would read the NOI teachings while smoking marijuana, coming up, formulating his own conclusion. There was a couple followers because he was still pretty high up. He was an assistant imam who left with him, and he was trying to kind of rethink, kind of reevaluate the NOI teachings. And so that's kind of where we get the beliefs come from. That's where we get it. So we got to go back all the way to like what would be considered the founding of the nation with the lost tribes of Shabazz. And so basically in the Nation of Islam, they have a little bit different doctrines slightly between the Nation of Islam and the 5 percenters, but the nations will say that originally there was one God, and this God was a transcendent creator, and he came down in the form of a black man over, and took him, like he had to decide just what portions of what type of human, how does he want to look. And so the way that God, quote unquote, decided to be was a black man, and so he came down to earth as a black man, and he started a society, and everybody has descended from him. And so his descendants were called the Lost Tribe of Shabazz. And at this time, all those descendants were black people, and they were in Arabia or Africa. And then there was this mad scientist who was here on the right here. who is here right here, who is here right here. His name is Yakub, and he was a kind of like an evil mastermind, and he decided he kind of fell out with the tribe of Shabazz, and he made a new tribe called the Nuwabians, and he made a new tribe, and he those white people to rival this black race, and he did it by kind of like what's the word kind of by like strategic genetics, probably by like artificially trying to create whiter babies all the way to he created white people, and that's kind of what they believe in the NOI, and that's what he did. So he created this rival race, and so that's kind of where you get that from. And so out of that, we have the 10%, we have the 85%, we have the 5%. So the 5% are the original people who are the lost gods, who are gods. They believe that the black people, because of the sin of God, they call themselves gods, and so these black people are the 5%ers, and they are black people who are descendants of that God that became black, and so these people they know the divine truth. They know that everybody is a God, but they need to realize and they need to do the work or the struggle to get to that point of self-realization that they are God. And then you have the 10% who know that there is this group of people who are gods, and they try to suppress it. They try to teach that God is what we find in traditional religion or traditional monotheistic religion, is that he's a transcendent being, the creator. There's nothing like him, and so that's kind of what you get. And so like the NOI is actually included in that 10%. That is in opposition to the 5%, which is the 5%ers. But the 10% can also include white people in totality. It includes Christians, includes Jews, it includes people who mistreat black people too. So like atheists, including that. And so then you have the 85%. The 85% are the people who are just following the 10% of the 5%, and they don't know anything. They're ignorant, and they're just sheep or lambs being herded by the 10%. And so, but I just want to go back to the lost tribe of Shabazz. The 5%ers will say that there wasn't the original transcendent God. God was a black man originally, one black man. There was original one black man, that God, and that's God, and so there's a whole bunch of blank sheets of like history that they're just overlooking through that idea, and so that's the original God in their view, and they'll say the lost tribes of Shabazz are descendants of him. That's what they'll say, and then that's basically their beliefs. They also believe that actually men are gods and women are earth, and men are kind of seen as the doers, and they're supposed to put life into the woman, which is the earth. So put life into the earth, and so that's what they kind of see women as earth, and they also practice polygamy, and then and so then you also have their books. So they have the 120 degrees, and so a lot of their ideas come out of the 120 degrees. And it was a book actually originally in the Nation, but they also brought it over to the 5%ers. They kind of made some tweaks to it to befit their agenda. And it basically what comes out of this is the idea of like supreme mathematics. And so they have this belief that that's kind of a numerology, eschatology, these different isms and schisms that they believe in, and they believe that certain letters or certain words have meanings to them. For instance, one means knowledge. Number one means knowledge. Number two means wisdom. Number three means understanding. Number four means culture/freedom. So they see culture and freedom synonymously. And so for like the alphabet, A stands for Allah. they even go further than that. They say that Allah stands for arm, leg, leg, arm, head, which means like two arms, two legs, which means a man. So the man is God. That's what they believe. That's what they say. And they will go around see people in our 5%ers are call themselves. There's one guy. He's in Boston actually. He's actually like on a Boston City Council or on like a government advisory board. And this will make kind of Fox News. His name is Trucy Allah. That's his name. And so people have names like that. And so like Islam, um, they broken it down to I standing for I, S as in S, Lord as in for L, and then master. So I self Lord and master. So saying I am the Lord in a way, and then L means love. L means love, hell, or right. So basically, they have words that come up with these understandings. And supposedly, these came out of the 120 degree lessons book, and they kind of, you look at this one on the right here. They kind of, you can see in that illustration that you have man, you have woman, you have child at the bottom, and at the bottom it says a guide for 5%ers to follow as taught by Clarence 13 X Allah. And so they also have like letters. Excuse me. They also have numbers next to their names, like Clarence X13, for different symbolic reasons. They use something about the 120 lessons in the book, promotes them, makes them do that, and then they have some rules and codes. They want people that are other 5%. They want to treat each other with peace. They want to settle disagreements. They know alcohol, drugs. Interestingly, the guy that founded it, he was high when he was trying to do the research. They have dietary rules: no pork, clean eating. They kind of align with Sunni Islam on this area. They have rituals. They don't worship. Because they said we are God, so we don't need a worship. But they have like classes on the 120 books so they can get to that level. Once you have kind of embodied these lessons, you become the 120 lessons, you can reach that status of God, quote unquote. And that's basically what they try to do. It's like self-discovery, self-reflection, finding yourself. And once you found yourself, you realize you're God. And then the Universal Parliament is basically where they sit together, discuss business. It's basically where these people connect. And that's pretty much it. But we can just go back to Clarence. He actually was assassinated. He was actually assassinated. He was arrested a couple times. He had some schisms with the nation. He actually mourned Malcolm X's death, but he was probably killed, in my hypothesis, by the nation because he had a lot of power. He took a lot of people with him. There was a certain times where people, that was even a household name, people will be talking about them in my household because we kind of came out of, my parents have kind of came out, and their parents kind of came out of that era after the ending of the nation and when Malcolm X left. So there's some people that you might meet that my parents might know of that are from the 5%ers. But he was actually assassinated. But I would say he was probably assassinated by the NOI because they might not have been responsible, but they were in some part or a piece in the assassination of Malcolm X. My hypothesis is because they assassinated other people who left, they really probably assassinated him. And then this one more mention, going back to their beliefs, is that in the 85% you have non-black people, and these non-black people are that like Asians, South Asians, Hispanics. They are considered by them to be able to reach a level of righteousness, not God's, a level like sainthood, but they can't reach the level of God that a black person would. And they also believe that he believes that the Nation of Islam, I mentioned this, it was kind of like a prophetizing group. It wasn't necessarily the right track. And that's basically it. That's all I have. This is just a short piece. I'm sure I was still trying to look for questions like how do they answer these questions. They skip over a lot of history, so it was a really interesting topic. Thank you, Professor.